Hi, my name's Elizabeth. I'm a librarian with the Cosby Library and Community Commons, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make pom-poms with the yarn that was included in one of the adult craft kits, and you can use these as an embellishment on a larger project like I've done here. You can also use them on knitting projects, on crochet projects. So this is basically what you use on sort of the traditional winter hat with a pom-pom on top. They're really simple to make, and you don't need very many tools. All you really need is the yarn, some scissors, and something to wrap the yarn around to make the pom-pom. So with this little one, I used a regular sized fork. With this middle-sized one, I used one of these serving forks. And on this big one, I actually used my hand. If you want to make a pom-pom of a very specific size, you'll probably want to make a jig of some kind that will help you to make a pom-pom of a specific diameter. So this one would be for a really big pom-pom that you might want to make that would end up being about that width when you're done. I'm going to show you how to make one on the serving fork. A few tips before we get started. You'll probably need to use more yarn than you really think you need to be able to make something that's really nice and full like this. And I'll show you how you can kind of tell if you have enough on your fork or your hand or your jig. Once you take it off, you can sort of tell if your pom-pom is going to be full enough. There probably are formulas out there on the internet that tell you how many winds, how many turns to use for specific sizes of pom-poms. I just sort of eyeball it. You can tell on this one that I made on my hand, it's not nearly as full as these two down here. Doing it on your hand is actually a little bit challenging, especially if maybe you're really dominant in one hand and not in the other, because you'll have the yarn wound around one hand while you're trying to tie the center string with the other one. But I will try to show you sort of the basic technique, and you can extrapolate from there to see how you might make pom-poms of different sizes. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, I'm going to use the serving fork for this one, and I will use the blue yarn again. So what I'm going to do is I will simply start, and I will give you another tip here. There's two ways you can do this as far as the center string is concerned. So you can have the center string already preloaded on your tool, which is what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to put it right down here in the center, and that will actually help me later on. Or you can do it after you do all your winding, but I do find this to be a little bit easier, especially if you're doing it like on your hand or on the smaller fork, because your yarn tends to want to come off when you're trying to tie that center string. Grab my yarn back since it fell off the table. There we go. All right. So I've got my center string already preloaded onto my tool here. I'm going to kind of hold that in place while I do my winding. Now for that little pom-pom, I actually did count, and I did 45 winds for that little pom-pom. For any bigger ones, it's going to take more than that. So the bigger your pom-pom gets, the more winds you're going to need. So that was about 5 right there. So that's what about 20 looks like. And that's about 40 right there. You want to make sure that they're not coming off the end of your tool. You can stop holding that, that beginning bit after a little while. But you can see I don't really have very much thickness there. I'm going to need a lot more than that. So I'm guessing I'm going to need about 60 to 70 for this one. So there I am at 60. And there I am at 70. And I think probably 70 is going to be about right. I'll do a few more just for reassurance. So that's about 75 or so right there. All right, I'm going to cut it off. And then using this string, this is what I'm going to tie down the center to secure my pom-pom. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that down, and I'm just going to use a regular square knot. So that's right over left and left over right. So I'm going to do the first half of the knot, and then before I do the second half, I'm going to try to hold this tight, and I'm going to take this off of whatever tool I'm using, because I'm not going to be able to get this knot fully tightened until I take it off. Now you can see here that when I tighten, it does sort of form a disc. It forms a complete circle. So this is one of the ways that you know that you probably have a full enough pom-pom, that you did enough turns, because if there's a big gap right here, you're going to have a gap in your pom-pom. So I know that I probably got enough winds on this one for this to be enough of a full enough pom-pom. All right, so I already did my right over left. I'm going to do my left over right, trying to hold that initial knot tight and in place. And you just kind of do that with another finger and gradually work that second part down. All right. And then the next to last step is to take your scissors and then cut these loops. So you want some nice sharp scissors that you can use using the tips of the scissors. And you can go back later and get any loops that you missed. So there'll be some loops that are a little bit shorter and some that are a bit longer, because the loops that were on the inside, your very first loops, they're going to be shorter when there wasn't as much material on your jig or on your fork. And you just go all the way around. There we go. And sometimes you'll get some little snags that pop up here and there, and that's not going to be a big deal. Not every single thread in this needs to look perfect. So you just want to kind of go around and try to catch any loops that you missed. If you need to make a lot of pom-poms, there are some tools that you can buy, some like pom-pom makers that you can buy from the craft store or from online. If you're going to do a lot of hats, for example, or you need a lot of pom-poms for some other project, there are tools that you can buy to help you, but this is just for if you want to make just a few. All right, so you can see that it looks like I've caught all the loops, and I can't see that center string too well, which is good, so I did get my pom-pom full enough. And then from here, you're just going to trim to make your pom-pom into the shape that you want, which generally people want to make them sort of roundish, but if you want to make them a little bit more oval shaped, that's fine too. So you'll just go around and trim until it's the shape that you want it to be. And it'll probably always be a little bit longer around the edges. It'll probably always be just a little bit flattened. If you want it to be perfectly round, you can do that, but you're going to lose a lot of the length because you can see that's where my center string is. So the ones that you make using this method, if you want to keep them at kind of the maximum size, they're always going to look a little bit flattened. So you can kind of see where I'm going with that. I could keep trimming and make it even rounder. Let me show you just real quick a couple of the things about making the big ones on your hand. So if you want to make a big one on your hand, where it gets a little bit tricky is that you need to have a little bit of a gap right there to put that string through. So this is where it's especially important to remember to put that string on, that middle string on, before you get started. because otherwise it's very difficult to get it through your fingers once you've started wrapping. So from here, I can begin wrapping around my fingers to make an even bigger pom-pom. And you just have to be really careful that because your fingers are different lengths, you know, you only really have that much space right there. Because if you start to let the string go up towards your other fingers, now you're going to have a bunch of short strings in your pom-pom. So just remember to be careful if you're using your fingers to absolutely put that string on before you get started winding. And also to just really watch that you're not slipping off that pinky finger. So I hope you enjoy making pom-poms for your projects, and we will see you in another video.